We've got guest number 2 on the podcast today, and we are so excited. We're going to have several different podcasts with Zach Andrews. He is the Shelby County Community Mental Health Liaison. But I did it, right? I did it.
Good job.
So we are going to talk all about mental health, but in the aspect of how it kind of intersects with law enforcement, and it's going to be very, very interesting, I think. So let's dive in, guys.
Welcome to It's a Mental Thing, the podcast that dives deep into the power of the mind and the heart of mental health. Whether you're navigating life's challenges, seeking balance, or simply curious about how to care for your mind, you're in the right place. Each week, we explore stories, strategies, and expert insights to help you build resilience, find clarity, and embrace a healthier you. So take a deep breath and let's journey together toward a brighter, more mindful tomorrow. Welcome to It's a Mental Thing, because your mental health matters.
All right, guys, we've got Zach Andrews today. He is the Shelby County Community Mental Health Liaison. Do you see how I look at you every time I say that for assurance?
Confirmation.
I do.
You're
just
doing
want
so great.
confirmation
So great.
that I'm correct, and I am. But this has been something that has been really, really huge in our community. It has just been shared a billion times. And I reached out to Erica, and I'm like, we've got to have Zach
Yes.
on, right?
Yeah.
And you and Zach do not know each other.
No, this is our first
Oh,
time
this
to
is
meet.
First time, yeah.
Yeah.
But Zach, the last time we were hanging out, you were a scrawny little baseball player at the University of Montevallo, and
was.
I was a sorority girl. And how in the world have we gotten here? That's what I want to know.
It's been a journey.
it has been quite a journey, right? So talk to me first about that. I want to know how you got from you're playing baseball, you're an athlete, and now you're working in the mental health field with law enforcement. So tell us the journey.
Graduated with the undergrad degree in kinesiology and just found a job because there's not a lot of jobs in kinesiology outside of being a PE coach, or if you want to go to additional school, become a physical therapist. And I was just done with school. I was like, I am never going back to school in my entire life. But after, 10 years of being in the workforce, I just wasn't happy, just bouncing from job to job. And I took about 6 months to really self-assess and say, what's important to me? What are my values? And I just kept falling back on people. Like, I love people. And so I started talking to multiple people, like, what would be a good profession where I can just love on people all the time? And I talked to Melissa Stano, and she's like, I'm going through the counseling program at Montevallo. I think you'd be fantastic at it. And so I did. I came back home and it's like, I'm going to go back to school. And everybody thought it was a joke. I was like, I'm serious. I'm going to go back and get my master's degree in counseling. And I did. And it completely changed my life.
That is incredible. So you went back to Montevallo and got the master's there, right? After that, were you like, okay, I'm going to be a therapist. I'm going to work. Like, what did you want to do with that?
So my thought process, I was going into school counseling because I'm like, man, 9 months on, 3 months off. It sounded like a good setup. And then I spent 3 semesters of internship in a middle school. And I was like, this isn't for me.
So in case you didn't know, Erica
full circle.
was also a middle school counselor.
Right. I finished at Montevallo in their counseling program, and I did the school counseling track and then took additional classes for marriage and family, and then the community health counseling track, but ended up in a middle school as a school counselor for 8 years before I opened my own private practice. So was middle school just not your jam?
I think kids weren't my jam.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. So you
so-
see yourself with adults more.
There was local mental health agency, Central Alabama Wellness. They had somebody that
Yes.
comes into the school, and she was like, "Hey, we have some positions opening if you want to join." And so I did, and then I got offered to go down to Clanton to be the adult outpatient therapist, and just fell in love with the adult population. It was just, you could have those real conversation, you could see real impact.
Yes.
And I was just like, "This is it. I want
Yeah.
to work with adults."
Right.
And then from there, I started helping out with Central Alabama Wellness on the probate side of things with the involuntary commitments, doing some after hours, backup calls. And then the person that had the position moved up. And I was like, I want that. I love the crisis situations. I love that process, and just kind of let it here.
And what better way to love on people than when they're in some of their worst moments, right?
Yeah.
Gosh. Okay. So talk to me now about the mental health liaison, the community mental health liaison. What exactly is that job?
So it's essentially a resource in bridging the gap between law enforcement, mental health agencies, and the community. What Shelby County really started identifying as a huge gap was, what does law enforcement do when there's a mental health crisis, and where is that data going? There was no good go-between. I had contact with law enforcement all the time with Central Alabama Wellness as the probate liaison, but we were very limited in what we could do. Just because you're tunneled into the Department of Mental Health, there's a lot of red tape. And so they identified that there's a need for it. And that's what I do. I spend most of my day working with law enforcement, taking mental health referrals and documentation to see how we can get those individuals that are potentially leading into a crisis, be proactive in getting them the resources they need before it's a full-blown crisis.
So you were seeing them. Are you seeing people who, I don't want to call them criminals, but are you seeing the ones who are in the jail as far as like when you get referrals for mental health crisis, or are you trying to prevent them from going to jail and breaking a law before something happens when they're in the outside world?
It's kind of a mixed bag.
Okay.
So what we've created is we standardized and centralized a mental health documentation form. That way, every law enforcement agency has the same exact form. So
Okay.
if they respond to a scene and they resolve it, but they
Yeah.
say, hey, we feel like there's a mental health need, they're sending me that information so
that's
we
so
can
great.
reach
Great.
out proactively or
That's
get them
so great.
connected with Central Alabama Wellness. Sometimes the most appropriate response in situations is to make that arrest.
Yeah.
And even then, I'm getting that information, getting that mental health documentation, and I'm reaching out to Shelby County Jail social worker saying, hey, this is what happened. Can you do an evaluation to see if they need to get back on medications, or how can we connect them?
So you are in one-on-one contact with that individual.
Sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah. So a lot of mine is like a glorified coordinator and a
Yeah.
communications
Yeah.
specialist.
Yeah. Well, it becomes a safety issue too, I'm sure, at some point.
Right.
Or it could.
Absolutely.
Okay.
But there are, so we did pass, as in I'm part of Alabama.
You
Your
did.
team.
Yes.
Your team.
Yes.
So Alabama recently passed what they call Senate Bill 240, and it allows us finally to have our probate judge talk to the municipalities and the circuit court judge. And for people that have misdemeanors or violations that may be experiencing a mental health crisis or suffering from whatever it is,
Right.
we can actually get them to kind of stay or suspend charges and holding and get them connected to mental health treatment. So,
That's so
we're
great.
working with the local court systems and the probate to say, hey, this may be a result of a mental health issue.
Yeah.
Jail's not the most appropriate place. So that is something that we have not had. Now it's a
Wow.
resource. And since that got passed in January, I think we've had 20 plus people that we've been able to divert out of the criminal system
Wow.
to get hooked up with treatment.
This is huge
Oh
for you.
my-
This is
yes,
very close to your heart.
I think it is so great. Something as small as a homeless person. We're seeing more and more of that in lots of different communities.
Right.
And you, as a mental health therapist who also wanted a job to care for people, non-judgment, no bias party, I'm just their person that they trust and that they know they can say, of course, lawfully what they need to say to, and confidentially it's between me and them, unless there's unlawful or self-harm actions. So, for example, where I'm at in my building, I have had a homeless visitor before who came in, and I had patients in the waiting room. Now, I personally, in that moment, since I'm here, this is my own practice, I didn't know if it was a safety issue, but I immediately wanted to make sure that my patients who were waiting in the waiting room for me felt safe. I wasn't afraid of this individual that came in. I asked him what he needed and what he was here for, offered him coffee. He got coffee and then he made his way out. But I did call the police to make sure that there was a safety check around my building because of where I'm located. It's not uncommon to have people walk past every day.
Right.
But whereas my patients were totally afraid and scared of what he could possibly do or what he was doing there, I immediately went into the mindset of, I need to help this individual figure out what he's needing, where he is in this moment, and then just kindly escort him out without bringing some abrasive, scary vibe or calling immediately the police, because I did not feel in danger, but Alabaster Police Department was here within 30 minutes. They first asked me, why didn't you call us when he was here? And it was mostly because I didn't feel in danger.
Right.
But they knew exactly who the individual was. He went well on his way, but they came and sat in front of my building for the last 3 hours of that day just to do what they call, I want to say wellness check, because that's what therapists do.
Yeah.
But I think it was like a safety check or something.
Like a welfare check.
Yeah. And so they just sat here, waited, knew who it was, and they were like, just if he comes back, let us know. But I did go straight to thinking, this guy's got more going on than just being homeless. He's not a danger, or I don't think he is in this moment. But I was thankful to have the police department to know, hey, they can come and check in. They knew who this individual was. I got him out because I keep the door locked here for safety reasons. But yeah, there's more to it when you've got people like that where you can check in on and say, let's see what else is going on here, rather than arrest them, throw them in, and not question it.
Right.
So that's a good thing that I've never known we even had, or wasn't even something we had in place to be a law.
It's brand new.
Yeah.
And so it's crazy because I've had so many different reps from different counties from the mental health side of things to reach out and say, how are y'all doing that? Like, it's not that in that public eye yet. And so the more that we can train other counties, like, this is a resource that's invaluable when it comes to getting people connected to mental health resources.
Have you ever heard of the program Mental Health First Aid? So I did a lot of training in that for myself, but I've had enough college to know what to do. But Mental Health First Aid is where you can train law enforcement, teachers, principals, individuals. If you're in a crisis situation, you become that middle guy who knows how to speak to that individual until you have help come or arrive. And so we did that a couple of years ago in Alabaster, where we trained a group of people who might need to know what mental health first aid is. We're not training you to become a therapist or a counselor in that moment of crisis. But what we're doing is giving you the words to say, to sit down with that person, just like with this individual who came in, have a calm conversation with them, let them know you're listening to them, let them know that they are safe in this moment and that you're looking for help. So it seems that you guys are going beyond that mental health first aid and teaching people what to do in a huge crisis moment.
Absolutely. And mental health first aid is great. So when I got this position, I had to check a lot of boxes. And one of the biggest things was CIT, which is Crisis Intervention Team. They have a 40-hour training that they provide to specific law enforcement that want to be a part of the CIT team. And what we're hoping to do with every department is to build a CIT team within that department. So you have specific, it's like the SWAT team for mental health.
Yeah.
So everybody doesn't need to be on it because there's law enforcement officers like, I don't have anything to do with feelings.
Yes.
This is not my bread and butter, which their bread and butter is keeping the public safe.
Yeah.
But there are people that have family members with lived experience. And so those people are like, hey, I want to know how to handle these situations. So we're working to build CIT teams on every department and have a coordinator. And that coordinator is going to respond back to me when it comes to what's going on. And so it's going to be great because
I love that.
That 40 hours, it provides a lot of education about how to recognize symptoms and behaviors related to mental health issues, substance use issues, even things like dementia. So there's a big difference when it comes to those, but a lot of similarities when it comes to the behaviors and symptoms. But one of the big things with CIT training is they spend 2 days working on communication skills and de-escalation skills.
Yes.
And we will role play and role play and role play, stop mid role play, reevaluate, and say, hey, try this dynamic, try this angle. And it allows law enforcement to be more confident in approaching situations.
Yes.
I love that.
It's great. And that's something that's filtering down from the Department of Justice. Like this is going to be, we're working with the state steering committee to set a CIT standard that every department is required to do this.
I think that is so great that there are going to be teams of those people, because it makes such a difference in your tone and how you communicate with those specific individuals. We were talking earlier how, a crime isn't an excuse to, well, I have bipolar schizophrenia.
Right.
That's not an excuse. And that's coming from a mental health therapist, where I can say, oh, well, their diagnosis is X, Y, and Z. But the choice that was made to cause, an extreme accident or break a law, there's no excuse there. However, treatment as far as handling that individual is very different. Whereas you have someone who has no mental health background, no criminal background, and made a poor choice, whether they're ending someone's life, breaking into some location. I think that's where bridging the gap of mental health and law enforcement is, where there has to be some sort of understanding, where I believe you could come in and say, this guy who has bipolar schizophrenia, all of what he's done makes so much sense.
Like directly related to that.
Yeah.
And I think that's the beauty of the position we've created. So I'm the community mental health liaison, but Judge Boyd and I went in front of the commission to say, hey, there is a need for a mental health officer in Shelby County. So we passed a resolution in May that gives me the ability to go on scene, do an assessment, and if they meet a certain criteria, I can put them on a temporary court hold to get them to the hospital.
For like psychiatric evaluation.
Right. And at that point, they determine if they need to be inpatient treatment or not.
Yeah.
And so that has been a game changer. Because so even last night, for instance, I got called out got a phone call at 1 o'clock in the morning. It said, hey, because usually I'll encourage law enforcement to call me and we'll do a consultation on the phone.
Right.
So it may not be where I need to go out. But we had an individual, very paranoid, had some persecutory beliefs, felt like he was in danger. And so he had access to a few firearms. And so there was no criminal activity, that nothing needs to be charged. But it was, hey, we have concern if we leave this scene. The community is going to be in danger.
Yeah.
And so I was able to go out on scene, spend about 45 minutes talking to him, just de-escalate and trying to figure out what the root cause is. And he did meet that criteria. And so we worked with local law enforcement. He's like, I don't want to lose my firearms. I need them. I was like, cool. I was like, we're going to take them, put them in safekeeping. And so once this is all resolved, we can look about going back and get them. So we're able to transport them to the hospital on a temporary court hold. Got to contact the hospital this morning. They're like, hey, I think he needs to stay for a little bit longer.
Yeah.
And so I was able to file a petition and go through the court process.
God, doesn't that just feel so
I love that.
It does, because it's just that option was not there back in May.
Yeah.
And this has been, I've been out 6 or 7 times since May.
Yeah.
Some have resulted in, hey, let's put them on a temporary court hold, get them to the hospital. Then we get them connected with court-ordered treatment. So they have follow-up for 150 days where they're taking medications, they're going to see their therapist.
Yeah.
But there's also been times where I'm coming out onto the scene and we're able to resolve it.
Yeah.
Say, hey, how about we just get you scheduled with your therapist? It sounds like you just need to get in to see your psychiatrist.
Right.
Because your medications are off.
Right.
And
There
so
needs to be
instead of
some
having to
management.
take them to jail or take them to the hospital, we're able to resolve it and get them connected to where they need. But
That's incredible.
it's just about relationships and connections. And so what we did before we rolled any of this out, we met with every police chief in every department, met with the directors of the local hospital, met with all the directors of the local mental health agencies, and we're like, hey, this is what we're doing. And just the outpouring of support, like, we're in. Let us know what we need to do. It was just amazing. And so we're able to have law enforcement call me. we have agreements between some of the local mental health agencies. So I can call and say, hey, can you gather a little bit more information?
Right.
Because
Yeah.
the last thing we want to do is strip anybody of their rights.
Yeah.
And so that is because it's traumatic for the individual. It's traumatic for law enforcement. It's just, how do we reduce that trauma
Yeah.
for that person in crisis? So being able to coordinate and have conversation with many departments, it gives us the ability to make a more educated, informed decision
Yeah.
of like, what's the most appropriate for this person.
For that individual. I love that.
I mean, I think it. Oh, I dropped my paper, guys. It's fine.
Look at the helpers helping you.
I think it goes. Thank you. I think it goes. You kind of just explained it, but why do you think there is so much excitement and like? I mean, like me and Eric are sitting here like, like this is so cool. Why do you think the community's responding like they are?
Because I think everybody sees that there's a need for it. And I think it's becoming a little bit more visible, and people are becoming a little bit more outspoken about mental health. And no one wants to see these tragedies.
Right.
Yeah,
You know,
you're right.
and that's what I was trying to explain to people quite often. It's like, yeah, you're going to see some bad stuff on the news, but what you can't see because of HIPAA and laws, you don't see how many times we get to connect people with treatment and divert them away.
gosh.
It's
I love
fantastic.
it. I love it. Yeah.
It's just the fact that like law enforcement wants it too, because
Yeah.
their jobs are stressful.
Yeah.
And they're not mental health professionals, and we're not asking them to be.
Yeah.
But this gives us an opportunity to now see the individual in crisis as a person and not a problem.
Yes.
And I
Oh,
think
I love
that is
that.
just game changing in so
Yeah.
many ways.
Absolutely.
I love that. Oh my gosh, my heart is full.
I know this is like you are filling your cup
yes.
right now.
Well, because I've worked in a psychiatric unit before. I worked at Children's. So I would see the sides of things where also like medical professionals aren't a mental health therapist.
Right.
They're medical professionals. But when someone comes into a psych unit or to the emergency room, which is where I was a therapist at, and I would work the midnight shift. So a lot of people were coming
A lot of
in.
crisis happening.
And so they have to become medically cleared first.
Right.
So an emergency room is for emergencies, and we're training them as well to see a psychiatric crisis as an emergency too, so they don't harm themselves or the community.
Right.
But when you have a doctor or a nurse who's also working with someone who's in cardiac arrest or a broken bone, but then you have someone who's paranoid or schizophrenic, they medically clear them, and then they're like, they're yours.
Yeah.
And that's fine, but I hope we get to a better place of either one, having a better psychiatric hospital in general. So if we're working our way into law enforcement, maybe someday we'll have a full-blown Alabama hospital that's just for psychiatric needs.
I would love that.
Me too.
Because the local hospitals, they do get overwhelmed.
They get flooded with it.
And that's part of what we're trying to do from that SB 240 standpoint. So if an officer makes an arrest, or the social worker at the jail is like, hey, we see somebody we feel like having some mental health issues, it gives us ability to go out and do that assessment in the jail setting. So we're still able to connect that person to treatment without having to issue them up to the hospital, tie up that. So if they don't need inpatient, but they do need outpatient services, we can bypass that inpatient piece, still have the court hearing, get them connected to some court order treatment, but we don't have to tie up resources for people that need them.
For medical reasons, and then just send them to a psych unit. I love that. I think that's perfect.
There is so much more to unpack here, so much more, and I feel like we've just like gone so deep already, which is it's just so cool, and I love it, and I love that we're having these conversations out loud, and there's no
Yes.
stigma around it, and let's keep it going. So you guys, you better subscribe if you're not already, because we got more coming from Zach Andrews.
Be sure to follow our podcast on your favorite platform or find us on YouTube. Just a quick note, It's a Mental Thing is here to inform and inspire, but it's not a substitute for professional medical advice. If you're facing a mental health challenge, we encourage you to seek help from a licensed therapist like Erica or a healthcare provider. Remember, your well-being is personal, and only a professional can provide guidance tailored to your unique needs.